Hi everyone, and welcome to the week 6 application exercise. The exercise actually has two parts. In the first part, we're going to be calculating reimbursement for a particular encounter at an inpatient psychiatric facility, and in the second part, we're calculating the case mix index based upon 25 top DRGs for a facility. So let's take a look at the first part of this exercise, and you'll see that we're given information in figures 1 and 2. Figure 1 has the facility information and figure 2 has claim information. So we see here that we have the location of the facility. It is a rural facility. We are given our wage index and our per diem unadjusted rate. And we are also told that this facility has a full-service emergency department. Under the claim information, figure 2, we see when the patient was admitted and discharged, the length of stay was 14 days. We have the patient's age. We have our ICD-9 and CPT codes, and also our MSDRG. And then we see down here that the patient received a particular number of units for ECT treatment and the cost for each of those units. So we're given quite a bit of information, and what we're going to do is use these two figures and tables from the textbook to plug in the data in some of our calculations as we're figuring out what the reimbursement would be for this particular stay. So the next portion of our assignment actually gives us 10 steps that are required to complete this exercise, and these particular steps are also listed on page 150 in the textbook. So use that as a reference as well. There's a little bit more of a definition given to you in the textbook on page 150, so definitely use that as a reference for completing this exercise as well. So let's move on down to step 1, and in step 1 we are instructed to take the per diem rate and multiply it by a given factor here, and then we're going to multiply it again by the wage index. So we're going to take the data from the tables. In this particular step, our information is found in the facility information. So we're going to plug that information to get our total for step 1. In step 2, we're asked to determine whether or not this is a COLA eligible facility. So we need to determine whether or not it is a COLA eligible facility. You can find out the criteria on page 134 of the text. So over here in our total, we'll either have a figure or we'll have not applicable. Okay, in step number 3, we're going to add our results from step 1 and 2. So once you have this information here, you're just going to add it together and complete step number 3. Step number 4, we're going to be using a mini worksheet, okay, to come up with our total amount. So our first mini worksheet A okay, is asking us to calculate adjustment factors. So for this particular first one, A, enter the adjustment factor if it's a rural location. This information wasn't available in the text. All of our adjustment factors were listed, but not this total amount. MedPAR was listed. I actually had uploaded a PDF with this assignment in our course content that gives you the adjustment factor, which is 17%. So we're going to enter this information as 1.17. You may be asking yourself, why is she having me enter it as 1.17? But once you start to plug in all of this other information, all of the conversion factors or the adjustment factors begin with the number 1. Now, all of these adjustment factors are multiplied together, and when you multiply 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, your end result is still a 1. So for this particular first part, part A, in this mini worksheet, you will be entering 1.17. That is the factor. Okay, so in step B, you are asked to enter the adjustment factor if it's a teaching facility. Well, going back to our information in Figure 1, we're not told if this is a teaching facility, so we're not going to assume anything. This essentially would be not applicable. In Step C, we're asked to enter the adjustment factor for the DRG. Now, looking back at our Figure 2, in our claim information, we are given the DRG. So we're going to look up that particular DRG in Table 6.8 of the text to determine what our adjustment factor is. For Step D, we are asked to enter the adjustment factor for the comorbidity. Now, we've already studied complications in comorbidities, so now we're seeing how they actually interplay. And although this patient has a primary and secondary diagnoses, which are psych-related, the patient also has the diagnoses of uncontrollable diabetes, which is considered a comorbidity. So what we would do is look up that particular comorbidity, the diabetes mellitus, on Table 6.9 of the text. And we would take that information and enter it here, whatever our adjustment factor is for that comorbidity. In Step E, we are asked to enter the adjustment factor for age. And again, looking back at Figure 2, in our claim information, our patient's age was given to us. So we're going to look up that adjustment factor in Table 6.10, of the text. So once we have all of our data entered here, we're going to multiply all of these factors together to come up with our payment perspective system adjustment factor. So that information would be plugged in there. So we've completed mini worksheet A by completing those steps. So going back to Step 5, you're going to plug in your total amount, your adjustment factor from your mini worksheet A here for your total column in Step 4. So for Step 5, we are asked to multiply the result from Steps 3 and the result from Step 4. So you're going to multiply these two factors together to get the total amount for Step 5. Moving on to Step 6. Okay, we're asked that if this is a full service emergency department, if this facility has one, then we're going to choose the higher Day 1 adjustment rate for Step 7. If it's not a full service ED, we're going to choose the lower Day 1 adjustment rate. Now you may be asking yourself, what is she talking about? But if you take a look at, let's see, if you take a look in the textbook on, where is it? Well, we're going to be completing another mini worksheet here, mini worksheet B. If you take a look at this, you're going to be using it for the same thing here. But if you take a look at Table 6.7 in the textbook, you're going to see that there are two figures listed. Of course, now that we know from completing Step 6 that we're going to use the higher adjustment factor, we're going to enter that information here. I can tell you from Table 6.7 that the amount is 1.31. So we're going to enter 1.31 into our Day 1 adjustment factor cell. So we're going to enter that information. Okay, so now in the second column we're asked to take the adjustment factor and multiply it by the adjusted per diem rate. Now we calculated the adjusted per diem rate in Step 5. So we're going to take our Day 1 adjustment factor and we're going to multiply it by that figure that we came up with. And if you have completed the exercise accurately up to this point, your total amount in Step 5 will equal $888.09. So you're going to take your Day 1 adjustment factor, which is 1.31 according to the table on page Table 6.7 on page 147 of the text. So you're going to take that 1.31 adjustment factor and you're going to multiply it by the $888.09 to come up with your day one rate. So that would be your day one rate that the hospital would be reimbursed. You're going to follow this calculation through. You'll see in table 6.7 you can kind of plug in for day 2, 3, 4, all the way to day 14. That information's given to you right on that table. So for each of these cells in this column, whatever your rate is, you're going to go back and multiply it by the $888.09 to complete column B. So you're just going to continue with your rate here, multiplying by that 888. So you're always going to follow that total amount in step 5 to fill in this column. Once you have that completed, this is step 7 that we are doing. So once you have all of that information completed, you're going to add up all of those sums. So all of those sums in our mini worksheet, all of the sums in that second column, you're going to add them all together to complete step 8. So you will have your total amount. If you have done everything appropriately, your total amount at this point will be $12,965.75. So you're going to enter that total into step 8. Okay, so number 9, we're back to making some determinations regarding COLA, and we're given a couple of different calculations here, dependent on whether the facility is eligible for COLA or not eligible for COLA, and these have to do with the ECT treatments that the patient received. So that information is, you're going to find the ECT payment rate with the claim information. Again, the wage index is with the facility information, and you're just going to plug in the information based on whether or not the facility was COLA eligible, and you're going to perform this calculation to complete step 9. So for step 10, our final step in this part of the application exercise is to sum the results from step 8 and 9. So you're going to have step 8 and step 9, you're going to add those two together, and then you are going to, this is going to be for the entire stay for this particular patient, what the charge is going to be, what the hospital can be, expect to be reimbursed. You're going to have that total amount here in step 10. Okay, so for the second portion of the application exercise, you are given 25 top DRGs of a facility. It carries on to 2 pages. I'm looking at page 3 right now at the very bottom. And I'm just going to slide it over so we can get the whole thing on screen here. But where we have a number of columns, we have the volume, the major diagnostic category, the type, the relative weight, and the weighted average. So what we're going to do here is we're going to be calculating the weighted average. Well, how do we calculate the weighted average? It is actually, for this particular calculation, we're going to be taking the volume listed here, and we're going to divide it by the relative weight. I'm sorry, multiply it. So if we take the volume and multiply it by the relative weight, we end up with our weighted average. So you're going to actually perform that calculation all the way through for the 25 DRGs. So for the first one, you're taking the 420, which is our volume, you're multiplying it by the relative weight of 2.0953, and that will give you the weighted average. For this first one, it is 880.026. And you're just going to kind of carry through for each and every one of the 25 DRGs. Okay, so when you get to the very bottom, after you've performed those calculations, you'll see that you're asked to come up with a total for your volume. So you're going to actually add or sum, come up with the sum of all your volumes, and you're going to enter that information into this cell. You're also going to do the same for all of your weighted averages. You're gonna come up with your total amount. You're gonna sum all of those figures to enter into the total for the weighted average. Once you determine what those totals are, you're going to take the amount of the weighted average, the total. You're going to take the total amount and you're going to divide it by your total amount of your volume. So you're going to take these two figures, you're going to divide the weighted average by the volume to come up with your case mix index. So very easy, simple to do, but you've just calculated the CMI for the top 25 DRGs of a facility. I hope this little tutorial helped in completing this week's application exercise. If you do have any questions, please post them to the Q&A discussion board for this week, because if you have a question, other classmates may have one as well. So I'll see you in the threads. Thanks.